Okay, I'm going to start. Today we are learning chapter 21. It's by request. Someone asked for chapter 21, but they're not here to listen. So so we will learn chapter 21. Very nice, very beautiful kapitel of Tehilim. My most opinions this chapter is David speaking about the greatness of being king. And most specifically, the greatness of being Mashiach. And he speaks about the glory of it and how enemies, how he faces various enemies. Both David HaMelech and Mashiach face enemies. So we all know from history the many enemies that David faced. So he had his son, and he had King Shaul, and he had other nations. So David had plenty of enemies, and Mashiach also has enemies. And Mashiach, most well known, is the Gog and Magog, that will be the final war before Mashiach comes, and so. He speaks about how a king faces enemies, how he trusts in Hashem, and finally, the absolute trust, the absolute belief that Hashem runs it all, and that it will be great, and things will be it will be good. So that's a little overview of the kapitel. Who have just joined, we are doing chapter 21. And so David HaMelech begin with the introduction, Lamnatech Mizmor LeDavid. This is a song composed by David HaMelech, and one that was sung in the Beit HaMikdash. And then begins Hashem, Ba'azcha Yismach Melech Uvishuascha Mayagel Ma'id. So he's addressing Hashem, and he says, with your strength, okay, Yismach Melech, a king can be happy, Uvishuascha, and with your savior, Mayagel Ma'id, how much or how plenty he will rejoice. So Reb Nachman of Breslov comments about this kapitel of Tehilim, and he says from this very first pasuk we see that this is talking about Mashiach, the era, the time of Mashiach, and the time that leads up to Mashiach. And he says that if there's one message that we take from this chapter of Tehilim, the very foundation of the time of Mashiach is joy. Yismach Melech, the king should be happy. And he says that if we want to bring Mashiach quicker, if we want to have Mashiach more quickly, then Yismach, we have to find ways to rejoice. We have to find ways to be happy, because that is what's going to bring Mashiach. And we see the Breslov Chassidim that is their ethos, is being happy, right? Dancing, singing, working on even physically making themselves be happy. So that's at a very surface level, if we could call that surface. But to look at this a little bit more deeply or more cryptically, the commentaries explain to us that Yismach, the word Yismach, if you have a look at it, a Yud, a Sin, a Mem, and a Ches are the same letters as the word Mashiach. And so he says it's when Mashiach comes that Yismach, that we will be able to be happy. Until Mashiach comes, there is levels of happiness, pure, absolute happiness. Yismach Melech. When Mashiach comes, we will be happy. The commentaries go on and explain to us that the word Oz, which we translate as strength, is actually referring to Torah. And how do they prove that? So we say in our davening, Hashem Oz la'amo yitain. Hashem gave, simple explanation, Hashem gave strength to his nation. But we all know that what Hashem really gave his nation is the Torah. So when it says Hashem Oz la'amo yitain, it means that Hashem gave his Torah to the Jewish people. Now have a look then what it says over here. Ba'azcha, with your Oz, in other words, with your Torah, Yismach Melech, you will bring Mashiach. And the Talmud explains, he says, that it's through bringing and exposing Torah into the world. This is how we're going to bring Mashiach. He continues with when Mashiach comes, how happy are we actually going to be? Pasuk Gimel, he says, Ta'avas libo nasata lo. The desires of his heart he gave to him, va'areshes sefasav, and the words of his lips, bal, or the desires of his lips, bal manata sela, he never holds back. And immediately the Malbim comments and he says, what is the difference in the way we ask a human being for something that we want, or we ask Hashem? This is when we ask a human being for what we want, we nervous a little bit. Are we asking too much? Is it a cheek that I'm asking for this? Are they going to be angry with me? Are they going to be able to give me what I want? So normally when we asking for a favor from someone else, or we asking for something from someone else, we minimize it, we try and make it smaller, we hesitate before, we only ask if we must, right? Because that's the nature of humans and humans. When we ask Hashem, it says, Ta'avas libo nasata lo. A taiva is something that you want, not necessarily that you need. Sometimes you need it. Sometimes you really do need chocolate. But a taiva generally is what you want. Okay, you could even manage without it, but you really want it. Ta'avas libo, the desires of our heart, the things that we really want, nasata lo, Hashem will give us. How will he? When will he give it to us? Areshes of fasav balmanata sela. When we ask him, he won't stop us from asking. And the commentaries explain that probably we can all relate to this, that we don't need to hesitate before asking Hashem for something. But with our relationship with Hashem is ask him for what you want. Tell him what you need. Tell him all the different things that you need and you want, and you don't have to minimize it because Hashem has everything. And I'm sure I've told you this before. I was once talking to Dr. Rodney, and I was telling him about something that I wanted to limit. I just wanted to ask Hashem for a little bit, and he said, "Why? Don't you think Hashem has enough?" And it was like such a strong point. The more we believe in Hashem, the more ready we are to ask him for our needs, to turn to him and tell him what we want. Radak quickly points out that, as we mentioned in the pasuk before, that everything we ask Hashem for, we will get, but not necessarily now. Some of the things we will only get in Mashiach time. The Ramban explains this slightly differently, and he says that one of the blessings that we all would want is that we should be satisfied with not having all our tigers. So it's really hard to have lots and lots and lots of desires and not to see them being fulfilled. So a blessing that we actually asking Hashem for is that he should make us not have so many desires. He should allow us to be happy with what we have, with what we've got. And the Rambam points out, he says, a wicked person is never ever satisfied. He always feels that he's missing something. He doesn't have that house in wherever, he doesn't have that car, whatever, he hasn't got the so he, no matter how much he has, he always feels that he's missing something. And the Ramban says that this is a taiva. This is a real desire where you want and you just can't get enough. You can't get enough. A good taiva, on the other hand, is where you feel like I have everything I need. Whatever it is that I need, I have. If you remember the story of Yaakov and Esav when they meet each other, and Esav says to Yaakov, he says, Yesh li rav, I have lots. So Esav was a wealthy man, and he had lots of stuff. And immediately Rashi comments about it. He says, what a funny expression, Yesh li rav, I have a lot. What does that mean, I have a lot? It means there's still a lot more that I could get. I have a lot. I acknowledge the fact that I have a lot, but I could have much more. On the other hand, Yaakov's response to him is Yesh li kol. I have everything. Did he have so much more than Esav? Not necessarily. Could be Esav was much richer than him, but he had the bracha of feeling that he had everything. I remember when I was growing up, so those of you who know me well, I'm the only girl, and I was really spoiled. I only have brothers, and I had every single thing that I could want, except for a Cindy doll. My father did not think that I should have a Cindy doll. He didn't like them. They were similar to the Barbie dolls, and he kept on saying, Rifki, asked me for something else, but not a Cindy doll. And I was really upset, didn't have a Cindy doll. But I had everything else that I could dream of, everything that opened and closed and moved and whatever. And I had a friend who lived across the road from me who also had, she was also an only girl. Her parents were also comfortable, and she also had everything that she could want or need. And one day I said to her, I'm so spoiled. And she said, Rifki, you're not spoiled. So I said, what do you mean? I am spoiled, I have everything. And she said, no, if you spoiled, then I'm spoiled. And I know I'm not spoiled. Okay. This is the difference of the bracha of kol, of feeling that you have everything, or feeling that there's so much stuff out there that you could still have. And this is what David HaMelech is asking, and the Rambam is saying over here. When you ask Hashem for things, you have to also have the feeling that Hashem will give you whatever you need. And when you get what you need, yesh li kol, I have everything. I have absolutely everything. We actually make this request of Hashem in our benching. So you know that the Avos, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were all blessed with this blessing of kol. About Avraham, it says, V'Hashem beirach et Avraham bakol. Hashem blessed Avraham with everything. About Yitzchak actually says, Va'achal mikol, I've eaten from everything. And Yaakov, as I just told you, he said, Yesh li kol, I have everything. And so in our benching, when we say the Harachamans, we actually ask Hashem, we say, bless us, Hashem Harachaman, Hu Yevarach es Avotenu, you blessed our fathers, Bakol, that was Avraham, Mikol, that was Yitzchak, and kol, that is Yaakov. So you, Hashem, who blessed our fathers with bakol, mikol, kol, kain yevarech otanu. That's the way we want you to bless us. So we're not asking Hashem that he should give us so much stuff. We're asking Hashem that he should give us the feeling that we have everything, absolutely everything that we need. Now, what is this concept of areshes sefasav, the words of my lips? So you know that areshet is not just ordinary words. You might recognize this from just after we blow shofar. We say each time that we blow shofar, we say that little paragraph, Areshet Sefatenu, the words, the desires of my lips or our lips. So Areshet Sefatav, the desires, the words of my lips, deep desires, Balmanatosela, don't withhold from us. And so we ask, like, when it comes to our flesh and blood, human friends, parents, teachers, whoever it is, they don't know what we want. And if we want something very, very much, we have to say so. But Hashem knows exactly what there is. Hashem knows what he's going to give, and he knows exactly what we want. So what is this seemingly strange thing that we do, that we have to stand and we've got to ask, we've got to move our lips and ask from this deep place and have all this emunah that Hashem is going to give us what we need and what we want. What is this areshet sefatav, the deep desires that we have to ask Hashem? And immediately the Gemara tells us that Hashem wants us to talk to him. Hashem wants us to communicate with him. And the only way that we can have a relationship with Hashem is if we talk, if we ask, if we express ourselves, if we let him know how we are feeling. It's actually written in the Gemara, Mit'ayva HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Hashem desires. He has, just like we have a desire for various things, Hashem has a desire that Tfilasam shel tzadikim, to the prayers of the righteous. And that's why, even though Hashem knows what we want, he wants us to ask, to actually express what we want. The Mishnah tells us that when a person's prayers go smoothly, easily, That is a sign, and I'm telling you what it says in the Mishnah. I'm not saying absolute, but a prayer that goes very easily, it says, is a sign that Hashem accepted it. And so David HaMelech is saying over here, Areshet Sifatai Balmanata Selah. That which I'm saying from my lips, it just came out. It was prayers that you, Hashem, accepted. I know that you have accepted it, that you will not withhold anything of it. And David HaMelech says this when he's talking about Mashiach, and he says, when it comes to my prayers for Mashiach, because it's been so easy for me, David, to ask for Mashiach to come, and Hashem, I know that Hashem is listening. I know that Mashiach is really coming. He continues and he says, Pasuk Dalad, Kisakad menu birchos tov, because you've already given him good blessings. Earlier, Tashis Derosha at Teres Paz, and you've placed on his head a golden crown. So not only Hashem gives us things when we ask, but he already has started giving us good. And this is David HaMelech. He knew that. Nasan HaNavi came to him and promised him all kinds of blessings long before he asked Hashem for anything. And this gave him courage to carry on asking and to ask for Mashiach. And the commentaries tell us that this is exactly how we need to be. That if we are afraid to ask Hashem for something, then look around, see how much he's already given us. And when we see that Hashem is giving us good, he wants to give us good things, then we're encouraged to ask him for more. So Kisa Kadmenu, he's already given us good, all these good things. Therefore, we should have courage and we should have the strength to ask Hashem for even more. What is this golden crown that's put on his head? So at a very practical, simple level, historical story, after David and Yoav conquered Ammon, they took the crown, the golden crown of the king of Ammon, and placed it on David's head. So that's one, just a very practical application of this pasuk. But at a deeper level, what David HaMelech is telling us is that Torah and mitzvahs are the crowns that we wear. When a person behaves well, and that's behaving well is in their behavior towards Hashem and their behavior towards other human beings, these are the two crowns that we wear. And David HaMelech is hinting this to us when he says, you're going to have this golden crown on your head. The way we behave in this world is how Hashem determines what happens to us in the next world. And the Al-Sheikh comments over here, and he says, firstly, you know that a person who behaves well, he's a mensch and he's shomer Torah mitzvahs. Such a person, you look at them and you see them as something royal. In other words, we see their crown, so to speak. We see their greatness by the way that they are behaving. You can't fool people. If you don't have those crowns, no one thinks you're wearing them. Like it's you only like when someone is wearing those crowns, it's obvious to everyone. And the reward for being this mensch, for being this good human, is that we are rewarded both in this world and in the world to come. Chaim sha'al mimcha, life I asked from you, nasata lay, you gave it to him, eirech yamim eilam va'ed, and length of days forever and ever. So Rashi comments that there are two different parts that David HaMelech was asking for here. The first thing is that he's simply asking for Chaim, for life. So you know that David HaMelech was not destined to live. He was supposed to be born and die a few hours later. And through different events, Hashem granted him 70 years. And so Chaim, life, physical life, Sha'al Mimcha, we asked you, Hashem, for it. And you gave it to him, so that's at that level. And then David HaMelech becomes the father of royalty. As we say, David HaMelech Chai v'Kayam, he lives forever, means that his descendants will be royal, they'll be from the house of David, Eilam Va'ed, forever, until the time of Mashiach. So that's specifically talking about David HaMelech. The Al-Sheikh points out that this is also talking for us and saying, all of us want both of these parts of life. We all want Chaim, we want life in this world, good, happy, healthy life in this world. And we also want Eirech Yamim. We want length of days, which is talking about reward in the world to come. And he says that this is one of the things that when we're asking Hashem for, we should ask him for both, Chaim and Eirech Yamim. And back to talking about the kings themselves. So this is Pasuk Vav, says, Gadol kvoda b'shuasecha. His glory, his honor is going to be great because you saved him. Haid v'hadar teshaveh alav. Beauty and majesty you've put on him. So on the first part of the pasuk, Gadol kavoda b'shuasecha, his honor is great because you saved him. So the nations around, and then even us, when we see someone who Hashem has been good to, we praise Hashem. We say, wow, Hashem has been good to them. So our honor comes through the fact that Hashem has been good, and other people's honor is good. It comes because by the fact that Hashem has been good. We call this Kiddush Hashem, when we can turn and say, look how Hashem has been good to them, or look what Hashem has done for the Jews, or look how Hashem has saved those people in Israel, or whatever it is that Hashem does great. Our greatness is seen, the honor and greatness, through Hashem saving us, through Hashem looking after us. And this idea of Hod v'Hadar teshaveh alav, that Hashem placed majesty and beauty on them. So there are very strict laws about how a king has to behave. He has to make sure that he is physically Hod v'Hadar, that he is splendid. So I was actually quite fascinated. I went to check this with Yossi last night, and he said, absolutely, but a king has to have a haircut every single day. He's never ever allowed to have a hair out of place. He has to look beautiful at all times. It says that he has to wear majestic clothing. In days gone by, there were colors that were specifically royal colors, right? We still call them royal blue, purple, right? Those are colors that kings had to dress in, those kind of things, because it was majestic. And this was law. It wasn't just because they felt like it. It was law. And the Chazal tell us that anybody who represents God has to be Hod v'Hadar. He has to make himself look physically appealing. He has to look physically great. So it's actually written that a Talmid Chacham, a wise person, who goes out to the marketplace with dirty clothes, such a person, it says, is chayav misa, is deserving of death. And that sounds like so harsh. What does it mean? He spilt his coffee and now he's deserving of death. And the commentaries explain that when you represent God, then you have to look Hod v'Hadar. You have to look the part. You have to stand up straight. You have to wear good clothes. You have to take care of the way you look. This is Hod v'Hadar. So that's at a very physical level. Also at a physical level, that's got a bit of spirituality in it. It says that Hashem actually gives godliness to people if they need it. He shines his spirituality through them in order that they should look majestic, that they should look beautiful. And I remember one of my teachers telling me this, and it just came back to me when I was preparing. She said, have you ever seen an ugly bride? And we don't, right? Even if the same person was ugly yesterday, today when they sit on the chair with their beautiful dress and their hair done and their makeup and everything, we all look at brides and say, oh, she looks so beautiful. And what is it? That Hashem shines spirituality through them, so that a bride has the shechina, the godliness shining on them, and they look beautiful. So no matter how ugly they were yesterday, today they look beautiful. Simply Hashem does that for them. And it says that a person who is in a position like of being a king or a leader or whatever that is, one of the things that Hashem does for them is Hod v'Hadar teshaveh alav. he makes them look greater, beautiful, physically more splendid than they are. And if you stop to think about it, you'd say like, no, I don't think that they so beautiful. But the impression, the feeling that we get is the gift that Hashem has bestowed on them, this his shchina, this hod v'hadar, this beauty and this majesty. And this is actually what we mean when we say someone looks royal. So my husband thinks it's very funny that I'm fascinated with British royalty, or with all royalty, actually, because he always says to me, they aren't really royal. What is royalty? Okay, and when we want to use a compliment for someone about the way they stand or the way they dress or the way they behave, we use the term, we say they are behaving so royal, right? If they were behaving so royal, as we understand British royalty today, that wouldn't be a compliment at all. So why is it a compliment? Because of what real royalty is, right? Hod v'hadar that's real royalty that Hashem bestows on them, that they that it shines off them. Real royalty is real behavior. Pasuk Zayin, Ki shiseihu v'rachais la'ad, you will make him happy with blessings forever. Tachadehu b'simcha es panecha, and he will be happy by seeing success in everything that he does. So one of the things that a king has is that people look at him, they see the splendor, and they look at him and they bless him. He should carry on having all the splendor, but even more so, they bless other people through him. So they say, wow, you should be as handsome as King David, or you should be as rich as Avraham Avinu, or whatever it is. When a person looks at another person who is hod v'hadar, who is majestic and beautiful, and it's a godly beauty, we bless other people through them. And this is what David HaMelech says when he says, that through him you get blessing forever. And why does this happen? Pasuk Ches, Ki HaMelech b'teach b'Hashem, because the king trusts in Hashem, u'v'chesed elyon bal yimait, and because of the kindness of Hashem, he will never falter. And this is probably the most important point for the king and even for us. If a person understands that their success, that their hod v'hadar, that their majesty comes not because of their great plan, their good barber, their good taste, their whatever it is, but they realize that every success that they have is because Hashem gave it to them, Hashem is a partner with them, then they will never falter. Bal yimot, they will never falter. And that goes for us in our lives also. We're obligated to try our best, but to acknowledge at all times that whatever success we have, whatever we manage to do is not because of our greatness, but b'teach b'Hashem, we trust in Hashem. Timtza yadcha l'chol oivecha, there's he has a hand, he finds his hand, in other words, his power, his ability to fight all his enemies. Yamincha timtza sonecha, and with his right hand, he can fight his enemies. So the pasuk uses two different psukim to say two different words in the pasuk to say enemy. It uses the word oivecha and sonecha, two different words that both mean enemy. And the Rebbe explains to us that oivecha is talking about our physical enemy, enemies who try and attack our bodies, who try and destroy Jews and get rid of us as a Jewish nation. And we have a promise, says David HaMelech, that no one will ever be able to wipe out the Jews. They'll keep trying, but they'll never ever be able to wipe us out completely. And then there's a different kind of enemy, Sonecha. Those are the enemies who go for our souls, and they're the far more dangerous enemies. The ones who try and attack our belief, who try and attack our who we are, not simply our bodies. It's well known that the Alter Rebbe, at the time that Napoleon was fighting the Russian Tsar, that the Alter Rebbe supported the Tsar, And everyone was like so surprised, but Napoleon is going to free you. The Tsar doesn't let you keep Torah and mitzvahs. People stand in front of the firing squad. It's so dangerous. And the Alter Rebbe said, with the Tsar, we know exactly where we stand. He wants to kill us. That's all. He wants to get rid of us. With Napoleon, he's going for our souls. He's starting soup kitchens and trying to educate our children and with his education. And so the Alter Rebbe was like very clear that we have to be more afraid of Napoleon than of the Russian Tsar. Very famously, Yaakov says when he turns to Hashem and asks for help, when he's about to face Esav, he says, Hatzileni na, please save me, miyad achi, miyad Esav, from the hands of my brother, from the hands of Esav. And he says, whether he behaves to me like a brother, or he behaves to me like Esav, I have to be scared of him. If he's behaving like Esav, then I know he just wants to kill me and wipe me out. When he's behaving like a brother, then I have to be really scared and wonder what he's aiming at, like trying to get rid of my spirituality. He then continues and he says, he, at the time of your anger, you will destroy him with like fire. Hashem Hashem in his anger will swallow him up and destroy them with fire. So now David HaMelech is talking about how Hashem will destroy our enemies. The one that I just want to point out over here, it says the Alshich is referring to, it's hinting to Titus. Titus was the one who destroyed the Beit HaMikdash, and he burnt Jerusalem, and says that on Titus's deathbed he asked that he should be cremated and that his ashes should be sprinkled over 7 seas. And they asked why, and he said, because I don't want the God of Israel to ever call me to justice. So he figured that if he would be spread out all over the world, he would be safe. And so the Talmud tells that every single day there is an angel that goes and collects all the ashes of Titus and reburns them and throws them back over the sea. And that this is what David HaMelech is alluding to over here. You cannot run away from Hashem. And Hashem decides to punish those who harm the Yidden, and they will be punished. Next pasuk is alluding to the destruction of Amalek. His children, his fruits will be destroyed from the land, V'zara mibnei Adam, and his descendants from the face of humankind. So you know that we have a mitzvah to Timche Zecher Amalek, to wipe out any memory of Amalek, and eventually by the time Mashiach comes, there will be no remnant of Amalek. Kinatu alecha ra'a, he wanted to do bad to you. Chashu mazima, he plotted bad things against you. Bal yuchadu, but he wasn't able. And he says that this is the thing of all the goyim who have tried to rid the world of Jews, that they make all these fancy plots, and they do damage, but they cannot finish up their plan. They cannot wipe out Yidden ever. And one of the examples that's brought over here is again of Titus, that when Titus came into the Beis HaMikdash, he announced that he's going to kill God. That was his plan. And he took his sword and he stabbed the paroches, the curtain of the Kodesh Kodashim, the Holy of Holies, and it began to bleed, like blood came out of it. And Titus was so excited, he said, I killed their God. I killed their God. Clearly he didn't, right? He thought that he had killed Hashem. And finally the Mishnah, the capital ends, so it says, you Hashem will gather all of your enemies and you'll do away with them. Ruma Hashem b'uzecha, Hashem be elevated in your strength, Nashiro nazamre gurasecha, so that we will be able to sing and chant the praises of your gvura, of your strength and your heroism. And that will be, please God, when Mashiach comes and all our enemies will realize that it wasn't so worth it for them to be our enemies. And that is Perek Chaf Aleph. Thank you.
Thank you, Rivki. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Rivki.
Good Shabbos, everybody.
Good Shabbos. Thank you, Rivki. Have a good Shabbos. Take care.